Please, Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having this hearing, which gives us the opportunity to make a fundamental statement, which I join my colleagues in emphasizing that violence of any kind is unacceptable. Any kind of physical coercion or violence should be condemned, no matter who does it, no matter what the purpose is politically. And I hope that we share that view. Let me ask you about the role of social media platforms in the promotion and organization of the Stop to Steal groups. Indisputably, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms played a significant role in the organization and promotion of those groups that disrupted the state vote counts and organized the assault on the Capitol. These platforms fueled the rise of groups such as the Boogaloo Boys and the Adamwaffen Division, which are responsible for several hate-related murders. Facebook promised to stop these violent extremist organizations and ban their groups. Instead, according to Facebook's own researchers, the company failed to recognize the magnitude of the threat and take appropriate action to take down those Stop the Steal groups that incited, encouraged, and organized the violence that occurred on January 6th. And this problem remains. In fact, last week, the Tech Transparency Project released a report showing that Facebook continues to host and promote violent extremist and militia organizations that were involved in the Capitol attack. Facebook has even allowed secessionist militias to fundraise and place recruitment ads, including ads that state, quote, "We are prepared for war," end quote. Would you join me in the view that social media platforms have failed, utterly failed, to do as much as they can and should do to stop groups and individuals that promote and propagate violence?
Senator, I can begin and then obviously defer to my colleague, Ms. Sanborn. And if I may just make a couple of points. First, and I know you are fully aware of this, there's activity that is protected by the First Amendment. Espousing ideology, hateful ideology, is protected by the First Amendment, generally speaking, and the Department does not investigate anyone for First Amendment protected activities, when that is the sole basis for their actions. The intelligence community, to your point, the intelligence community has assessed that social media has increased the way that information is spread, the speed, the dissemination, the accessibility of violent extremist conduct, and it also content, and it also has facilitated the decentralization of that information among violent extremists and supporters. So social media can be identified as a source of some of the problem of the way this information is spread and how it can fuel violence. And I think that's the third point I would make, is that's why it's very important that the national strategy that was issued earlier or last year is clear on this point, that it's critical to address the information environment, and that we need to work in the government with the private sector, with social media platforms to help ensure that proper steps are taken so that disinformation is not as widely available.
Let me ask you, because I've heard some law enforcement officials say that when these groups are deplatformed, sometimes they're harder to track. You have other means of tracking them. You don't need them to be on social media for you to track them, correct?
Again, I would defer to Ms. Sanborn largely on this question, but I would say as a general proposition that is correct. There are multiple ways to collect information on individuals who are involved in violent extremist activities.
Do you have under investigation cases involving threat and violence against members of school boards, election workers, in other words, some of the targets, not here in the Capitol, but at the local and state level? You have under investigations those kinds of threats of violence?
As a general matter, it would not be appropriate to talk about any particular case. Again, as a general matter, the National Security Division is not involved in any of those types of investigations.
Why not?
It might include threats of violence against school board members. Senator, the only reason where we might get involved, well, really it's twofold. Where a particular threat might rise to the level of a national security threat, for example, if it's serious enough to rise to the level of domestic terrorism. I have not seen that. The other way in which we get involved actually is to ensure that threats of violence and violence that might be criminal are not improperly branded as domestic terrorism or domestic violent extremism. Again, as I understand the whole point of the Attorney General's memo on school board to protect both the First Amendment rights of people who are there to speak and participate in the political process, as well as the safety of public officials.
Let me ask you finally, because my time has expired, why has the Department of Justice not sought enhanced penalties in the cases involving the January 6th insurrection based on the terrorism element here? Under the 1993 law, enhanced terrorism penalties and punishment can be sought. Why has the Department of Justice not used that statute that clearly applies to domestic as well as international terrorism?
Senator, it is my understanding, again, I'm not going to talk about any particular investigation. Of course, that statute is available in the context of the investigations and prosecutions of the July 6th defendants, but each case just depends on the specific facts and circumstances of that case. And as the Attorney General described last week, that case is being built like all large Department of Justice investigations from the ground up, starting with those who are potentially at the lower end of culpability. So as, again, as a general matter, that's where we are in the investigation, and whether that terrorism enhancement might apply to any future case remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'm not asking about individual cases, but as a general matter, none of these cases has involved any request for enhanced penalties based on its involving terrorism. And I would like to know the answer to that question. I'm out of time, but if you could respond in writing, I'd appreciate it.
I will. Thank you.